Thank you, Chair. Well, good afternoon, members. Thank you very much. You remember this site from last month's committee, where there was an excellent debate, and members sent officers away to work with the Highway Authority and the applicant's highway engineer to review the pedestrian crossing. So I was sent away with a very narrow remit to review what options were available for the pedestrian crossing that was proposed. Today we would have been joined by Samantha Bai, but unfortunately she has been struck down with glandular fever, so she's not able to be with us today. But I was able to speak to her extensively about this site, so I feel well informed. Just to review what is before you in your papers now. We've got the site here in Kedington. The previous proposal was for dropped curbs and H-bar road markings, and we have now moved on to two options which are before you. So today I come to you effectively asking for direction on which of the two options you might want to go for. Option number one, which is widened H-bar road markings, or option number two. And we can see in the next photo montage the first option again, with the dropped curbs here, wider H-bar road markings, pedestrian access coming around from the site, or option two. This plan is effectively those options, or option number one in the plan form, and option number two. You have been sent a submission, I believe it was yesterday, by the Kedington Parish Council. I've made some notes on there, but they have obviously stated at the end that they would support option number two, which is I've left on here. There are some points I would like to pick up. I reiterate that I was sent away with a narrow remit just to look at the options for the pedestrian crossing, but I'm happy to just reiterate a few points. On their first page, I don't know if it's before you, but they spoke about Kedington Parish Council would like the development to directly mitigate against its impact by the provision of 6 car parking spaces. As I said in the previous presentation, this planning application is not required to put right an existing deficiency. It's not its responsibility to create car parking for either the school or the church. So I don't see that as a particular point. The Kedington Parish Council say that there are two plans which are in conflict. Myself, the planning agent and the architect have spent a great deal of time trying to ascertain what they mean by this, because we are unable to identify a site plan map dated the 24th of October 2014. It was simply a plan that none of us have been able to identify, so I can't comment on that. Safe to say though, that after this meeting it would be my intention to contact the Parish Council. Perhaps they have made an error in the date, or there's a different plan that they feel is in conflict, and working with the architect to ensure that there are no plans in conflict. They do mention something about SUDs as well, and I'd just like to clarify what I said in the last meeting about the SUD situation. The Flood and Water Manager at Suffolk County Council is satisfied that an acceptable scheme can be agreed and implemented based on the investigations that the developer has carried out and the assessments submitted. If the final scheme includes bunds, then these will be designated, or they'll need to be designated. If the final scheme does not include bunds, then there'll be no need for any designation. So I hope that clears that point up. And finally, they talk about how they are fearful that the vehicular access would be used by more than 40 dwellings because of a previous permission for 5 dwellings. That previous permission was on this site, so the developer could not build couldn't build out 2 planning permissions. So I hope that clarifies that situation. Two other submissions. One is from Councillor Rushbrook, and she has written to me and asked me to address you verbatim, so I'll do that now. She says, "Dear members, I'm disappointed this is in front of you for a decision today. I feel, along with the Kedington Parish Council and Tony Brown, County Councillor, this is being rushed through without any consultation with residents and interested parties. At your last meeting, it was decided that the road needed to be looked at. The developer, rep and Suffolk County Council visited the area. Tony Brown happened to bump into them on the day and asked for a report to be sent to him and the Kedington Parish Council before any decision was made. He was assured this would happen. The report was never reached by either parties, but is in your papers today. This development, as you know, is very close to the school. The proposed junction to the development is and will be a very busy and dangerous section of road. Safety of the pupils and adults is paramount. I have discussed with Peter White and he has assured me the crossing, road markings, etc. will be in situ as soon as the first accommodation is completed. I will also ask that a directive is placed on the site once building commences, stating no deliveries during the start and end of the school period. Finally, if a decision has to be made today, please consider Kedington Parish Council's favour option 2. Thank you for your time, Councillor Rushbrook." You may remember from the last meeting that Councillor Rushbrook highlighted deliveries. There is a condition that we were looking to attach on construction management plan. At that point, officers will be looking to ensure that deliveries happen outside of those hours, something I've said to you before, and the road markings that we are specifically looking at today, we would be looking to have those by condition or by some other means secured and available before the first property is occupied. Finally, the occupier of Mulberry House, which is in this location here, has sent a late paper and he's asked me to read this out to you. "The new access road and the consequential additional traffic will seriously impact the access to my property. My entrance is adjacent to the junction with Hall Road and that will be proposed for the development. I have to reverse out of my property and cannot see any traffic from Hall Road or around any parked cars outside my house until my car is level with the edge of the road. At the start and end of each school day, up to 4 cars at a time are parked on the grass to the front of the lines, which I don't believe has been noted in the report you are considering. In addition, as you are aware, cars are parked on the length of the south side of Mill Road from the entrance of the school to the junction of Mill Road with West End Lane, reducing it to a single lane. As cars leave, others arrive to park on Mill Road and on the grass in front of the lines. Frequently, cars meet head-on the stretch of Mill Road between my house and the entrance to the church. I have witnessed many occasions when a third vehicle has used the Hall Road junction to pass 2 cars that are stationary along the road of parked cars. I consciously avoid accessing my property at these times because of the serious risk of an accident and the risk of hitting pedestrians accessing the cars parked on the grass outside the lines. The proposed installation of either H-bar road markings or school keep clear zigzags does not reduce this risk. The new road is very likely to be used for parking at school drop-off times when the new H-bar or zigzag markings are installed. Any benefit these lines give is more than offset by the new flow of traffic and pedestrians from the proposed development. Under the proposed scheme, I will have to check for traffic and pedestrians along the new road to the development, in addition to that of Mill Road, Hall Road, and pedestrian movement from cars parked on the grass in front of the lines. A simple solution to mitigate the risks is to move the entrance to my property to the new access road. My access to Mill Road can then be closed. In addition, highways should also stop cars parking on the grass outside the lines and extend the existing yellow lines along Mill Road from the entrance of the orchard to the proposed new H-bar or zigzag lines to improve my visibility and stop dangerous overtaking at Hall Road Junction. I'm very surprised that neither of these have been included in the analysis by Highways. I ask that you please defer judgment on the planning application and ask Highways to improve the design further by implementing these ideas. The occupier of Mulberry House phoned me in the week and I discussed his concerns. The Highway Authority have considered his access, which is shown here and is within the highway land, and under the proposal will be altered. However, the Highway Authority are not going to alter someone's property and then create a situation where they cannot enter and exit their property. The developer has proposed or submitted plans which clearly demonstrate that cars and large vehicles, namely oil delivery vehicles, can enter and exit the site. The applicant has submitted a scheme before us, and it is that we are asking you to determine. It is not, it would not be, in my view, acceptable for us to refuse an otherwise acceptable scheme and seek a different proposal as the occupier of Mulberry House is requesting. So I think at that point I will stop the presentation, pass over to any questions that you may have, and hear which of the options that you feel might be appropriate.
Daylight will be restored. There we go. Right, committee. I don't like option 1. This area would also provide a passing point on a bend. I think that's worrying when you talk about kids and traffic. Councillor Rushton.
Well, you've just stolen my thunder on that one.
I do my best.
Option 1 and the H-bar markings, I really don't see that's an option, because although the parents of the school children would know that there was an H-bar marking there, casual drivers through the village at, drop off and pick up times wouldn't, and you don't see an H-bar marking until you're trying to park on top of it. So I don't think that's an option. The dropped curb, tactiles and zigzags are much better because it widens the display of non-parking. But I too was concerned that the report says it will provide a passing point on the bend, which to me is a recipe for disaster. But I'll see what other people think.
Thank you. Councillor Byrne.
Thank you, Chair. I think the last statement by my colleague is something that I was going to raise. I've visited this site on a couple of occasions since the last meeting, and I do see that the highways have done a study on speeds, etc. Did you take into consideration how many vehicles may be accessing the new site at different times of the day onto this very precarious bend on the road? And the yellow zigzag option 2, which I can also support, and it's one that Councillor Rushton is preferring. What other signs are there going to be allocated to the site? The ones below, where we've got additional comments above there, are they going to be visible signs that are also going to go up on page 174? We've talked about road markings. These are sort of, because I don't think the road markings alone are going to have the impact that we're looking for. And I am genuinely, the more I go and visit this site, I am genuinely fearful about that bend on the road and what's going to happen when we have a substantial increase in vehicles coming off that site.
Well, thank you, through you, Chair. Yes, the signs shown on page 174. If you turn to your screen, hopefully you can see my arrow frantically moving around. There will be a slow sign placed in the highway there, and the two other, there will be a combination of 545 and 546, which is the school children and the word school placed in that location. Oh, it's disappeared. There we are. So I hope that clears that point up. I haven't got to hand the data from traffic, the numbers. I seem to remember that there was something at some point. I hope I'm not confusing myself with another site. I think what I'd like to highlight is that the speeds that have been recorded in the drop-off and pick-up time, what were obviously recorded in the dropping off, are very low at 16 miles an hour. And the Highway Authority have worked very closely with the applicant's highway engineer to really scrutinise what is before you today. And I know if Sam was here, she would be able to very clearly tell you that she is entirely satisfied that this is a safe vehicular access and that the pedestrian crossing the two that are before you would be appropriate, and that she does not have safety concerns. And she has told me that, and I support her in the view that if members were minded today to refuse the application, it is my opinion that it would be one that officers would find extremely difficult to defend, and I suspect we may be seeking to defend an award of costs. So I'll leave that there.
Yes.
I think a threat of an appeal and cost when we're talking about children's safety is quite offensive. I know what happens if we refuse an application where officers have done a job of work, and Suffolk County Council and Highways. We're concerned here about children's lives and health and safety. So I don't think we need to be reminded when we're considering that there may be a cost factor if we refuse it. If we think this is not sufficient to protect our young people, then refuse it we must.
Thank you. Councillor Holder.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I don't think that point is wasted on any of us, quite frankly. The zigzag lines, which obviously is the chosen option by most people, including the ward member, have proven to be very effective outside the school in Borough, which is like awful in the mornings when the kids are being dropped off, and of course in the evening when they're being collected. Borough, if you could almost imagine the new road there with the school on the left, that access exits out onto quite a busy main road, feeder road out to the A14 and down into the main part of the village. And in my years there, the 30 years in the village, it's self-policing. You've got the warning signs that are noted on our papers here, before and after the school. You've got the zigzag lines outside the school, and the parents are basically self-policing. They understand all this. It's their children after all. People coming through the village can't fail to notice the signs, and they can't notice the parked cars where they are allowed to park and slow down accordingly. So now the Suffolk Highways have come back with a decent signing scheme, which was totally missing from the last one. I feel quite inclined to allow this one to go through, to approve it. The H-bar ones, we've got them in the village outside the shops and things like that, and across people's access points to their dwellings, and they're actually useless. It almost as if it sort of says, come and park on me, you know, like the previous councillor said. Okay.
Thank you. Well, this will be lucky because I'm going to get the markings on both sides of the roads. Outside my primary school, I'll come on one side, so everybody parks the other side. Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Chairman. There is huge local concern here, but this option 2 is certainly an improvement for traffic safety. I took the opportunity to speak to a local resident before this particular second look at the application, and I'm slightly disappointed in the master planning process that I believe there was an application many years ago to the east of the school that was declined by planners, maybe ourselves, I don't know, I can't remember it, that had the opportunity of limited development with a car park for the school. I'm disappointed that as we had a master plan for the particular site, that we didn't look further into the opportunities of providing occasional proper parking for the school and or community use on the back of limited development, so that both could run in tandem and greater safety could be delivered for the children. So we're probably not ambitious enough in that particular area to provide adequate safety for the kids long term and parking. But option 2 is a much better solution under the current application, and I think I would go along through as well.
Thank you. Councillor Beckwith.
Thank you, Chair. I didn't like this application whenever we went and had a look at it and discussed it before, and I still don't like it. And Hall Road joining onto Mill Road at the bend, I think, is dodgy to begin with. To suddenly stick in another 40 houses in a contrived junction like we've got there now, I think is totally unacceptable. I think it's a disaster waiting to happen, and I'm not going to be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Clifton Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to support this thing without the support of the Highway Authority. I believe that if it goes to appeal, we are bound to lose. Therefore, I would like to propose that we accept it.
Thank you. Is that seconded? Councillor Holder? With option 2, of course.
Option 2. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Ward.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to ask if on the map on page 174, it shows where there's going to be signs at the lower end of that map, saying slow and school. Is there going to be anything the other end? Because traffic approaching from the other end will suddenly come across this. And I do think it needs signs at both ends of it.
Thank you. Well, through you, Chair. The plan on 174 doesn't show the entrance to the school, and in fact, the entrance to the school is quite some distance along. So I think when you're driving along, if you're approaching the entrance to the school from the west, if that's my brain's working right, as you approach that entrance to the school, when you pass the entrance to the school, you then start to approach this area here. So it was considered at length by Samantha because I mentioned this to her. I said we've only got signs, and she said that they wouldn't have been appropriate and they wouldn't have been in accordance with their standards. So it was considered. Just in relation to Councillor Byrne, we'd like to apologise. I don't mean to say anything in any threatening way, and if it came across like that, please accept my apology for it.
Thank you, Ben. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Chair. Actually stole my thunder, but just in response to Peter's response to that, notwithstanding, I assume there are school signs further to the west. Would it not be possible to have slow on the road just before this bend anyway, coming from the west? Because that's what we want. We want traffic slow at this dodgy junction.
Good suggestion. A 1024 on the road. You can't approach it from that side because it's that particular junction we're worried about. Strange it's not the school itself, isn't it? Right,
If it would be acceptable to the committee, I can go back again and speak to the Highway Authority and say, these were this issue was raised. Can you satisfy me? Can we just satisfy ourselves entirely that that's not appropriate? And would it be appropriate for the committee to give me delegated powers that if there are the opportunity for additional signs, they will be put in, and as I understand it, there isn't, and if that's the case, then the application will be approved. But I sort of, I give you the promise that where there is the opportunity for additional signage, we will ensure that they are secured.
Right, we have it proposed and seconded for approval with option 2, with the agreement on page 176 and the conditions on page 190 to 195. All those in favour, please show. Oh, come on, you two, are you sleeping? Those against? 1, 2, 3.
It's 12 for 3 against.